how do they say it? We are on air or we're live?
Well, you got it. Take one.
All right, take one. All right, welcome everyone. This is MTech Podcast. My name is Nikolay and I have Jim Johnston with me. Hey, Jim, nice to have you here.
Hey, Nick. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, no problem. So on our podcast, we'll be talking about the questions from our customers and generally from the industry, and we'll be discussing them and looking at them at different angles. So if you want to participate in this, just send us your questions or you can participate as a guest. All right, Jim, so you've been working in the industry for many, many years in different positions and all around the world. So you have lots of experience. But I wanted to ask you, would you mind sharing with us how you started with the poultry and why you stayed in it for so many years? What's been driving you to stay here?
Good question to start with, Nick. Thanks for that one. Well, hey, I guess the simple story is I always wanted to do something different when I was a kid. I didn't want to be in an office. I didn't want to go to university. I wanted to do something different. And I'd always had hobbies. I always kept birds, chickens, canaries, all that sort of stuff. So I had an interest in feathered things. And when I went to a career advisor at school, at high school, and the guy said, okay, Jim, I think the thing for you is going to be, there's two things. You can either go into the chicken industry, because there's a really cool training course on chickens at the West of Scotland Agricultural College, or you can do forestry, and there's another course on forestry. So right. I kind of had two choices. So for me, it was always going to be chickens, I guess. And I've got to say, I really enjoyed that experience. 45 years this year in the chicken industry all over the world. It's been great fun, great people. It's a fabulous industry to work in. So I guess that's why I'm here. I mean, it's just exciting. There's change all the time. We've got to improve performance. And if you look at the difference in performance of a broiler, for example, when I started in the industry and 45 years ago to where it is today, it's an incredible change we've made in terms of genetics, nutrition, and management techniques over that period of time. So it's fun. It's a great, fun industry to be part of.
Well, incredible. I'm also excited to be a part of this industry. And like you said, it's really, really fun. But the decision you had to make between chicken and trees, that's really interesting, right?
Yeah, I think I made the right decision, but who knows?
Yeah. Well, time will show, but since you're still here, still with the chickens, well, I guess you made the right decision.
I think so too.
Right. So are you ready to get into some questions and see how we can tackle them?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Let's go for it.
Yeah. So the first question is coming from Evigen, one of the biggest genetics companies in the world. And they're asking, so how can MTech systems can help them to provide useful data to measure their performance?
Wow, that's cool. And, in an industry like ours, there's so much data around, and you have to have good data capture. So there's a couple of rules of the game. You've got to grab the data, and I'd like to measure as much as we possibly can, even stuff that we don't think is obviously needed to run our day-to-day business. Right. Because you never know when you might need to use it or analyze it. So data capture is cool. You need to get it done at source. So wherever that data is being produced, so on the farm or in the chicken's house, try to get it captured there. Make that farm manager or hatchery manager accountable for the quality of data that's coming into the system. The right. Validation of data then is also critically important. Too many people just dump data in, they don't check it, it's not validated. It leads to errors and mistakes in terms of your database. So data capture, one time only if you can at all achieve it. Automate data capture if that's at all possible, so there's no human involvement. And all of that helps to minimize mistakes and errors. Then validate the data and post it formally into the database. So that all of that discipline is really, really important. And, I know that the Avigem guys use reporting in the MTech suite really, really well. I mean, the guys there have developed a lot of their reports using the report builder that we have as part of the tool. So they've done a great job in taking what is already from what they got from MTech when they bought the licenses and actually developing custom suite of reports that really help them drive their business, measure the right things in their business. There's a couple of things that would enhance that, I guess, in terms of looking at BI, business intelligence. So being able to use that big database, but to be able to crunch it, slice and dice it, filter it, and manipulate the data in a dynamic sense. And I guess that's where businesses are moving into business intelligence tools. And then the other really interesting thing now is looking at how you can increase the granularity of data. So going into houses and taking real-time environmental measurement of temperature, humidity, CO2 levels, that type of thing, feed consumption, water consumption, bringing that data back in so you've got it centralized and the using that in terms of reporting and understanding what's happening in these chicken houses on a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week basis gives you additional power in terms of measuring performance and being able to improve.
Yeah, so I guess also it gives you a lot of visibility if you collect the data one time, you collect it on spot, and then you can run a report on a production level or on a higher level from a BI perspective. It gives you all the power to do decision making, to adjust your production if needed, and also to see where the weak spots or strong spots are.
Yeah, indeed. And I like the ability to put all of that data together on a similar, so I personally like some busy graphs. So I've got growth rate, feed consumption, water consumption, feed amounts, uniformity, production, all of that information on the graph. So I can see relatively what's happening with each trend. I can pick up trends, pick up changes in what's happening inside the house, what's the impact on the birds in terms of feeding rates, feeding levels, water consumption in real time really adds power to that, to the database and your ability to analyze and react.
Yeah, I think the visual is the key, especially when you need to quickly see what's going on. And what I saw in many places and many companies, that those busy graphs that you're talking about, they've been printed out on the big sheets of paper and hanged on the wall. So the only thing with this that you would need to do another printing next week once you get more data. But that really gives you a big picture when you have everything in one spot and you can easily trace and track. But of course, if you need to go deeper into detail, you can look at the initial data, like day by day or week by week.
Yeah. And the other important thing, Nick, is giving something back. We've got the guys on the farms, they capture a lot of data. They basically do a great job every day sending that through to an office, head office or whatever. But giving them something back. So, data capture tools that also allow the farm manager to see how does that update his graphs, automatically getting that information back in report format or graphs so that it's a two-way exchange of information. He's putting the data into the system, but he's being, rewarded or incentivized to do so. He's getting information back that he needs to manage his birds and to make the best job of it. So, that's a really great way of improving the use of data, giving back to the people who capture that information every day, graphs and tools and reports that allow them to do a better job.
Yeah, exactly. Feedback is very important.
Yeah.
All right. So I think the second question we have is also quite connected with what we've been discussing so far. And it's coming from Moypark, one of the largest broiler integrators in UK. And they're asking if they have many reporting formats, how can MTech systems help them to achieve one version of truth across all the divisions, functions in their agribusiness?
Yeah, a really interesting question. And, I look back and that question kind of brought to mind a couple of things in my career, in my past, where we've had similar challenges. And, we haven't had the benefit of an MTech system at that time, but effectively looking at how we make one version of the truth within a large integrated organization with different production regions, different farms and complexes. How do we standardize? How do we get discipline into that system? So there is only one version of the truth. And it takes me back to my days in Rainbow many, many years ago, where we had 3 large production regions. And initially, we all used to look at numbers that were generated by individual systems and spreadsheets in each of the regions. And there was no consistency in terms of the definition of KPIs, and the whole thing was just all over the place. There was no standard reporting. The business got done every day and every week, but it was very hard to analyze and benchmark performance between the regions. So we effectively established our one version of the truth in terms of, this is the report, here's the data capture we want, this is the report that's going to generate it, here's the definitions of every individual KPI. And we went through that like kind of longhand. At the time, it was a very manual process, right, but it was extremely successful in refocusing everybody on the same numbers. We then created internal competition, knowing that everything was done on the same basis, apples against apples. And that was extremely powerful in the challenge we had at the time to move that business forward, to rapidly get efficiencies and progress in that business. So, it comes around discipline to have one system, one data system. Now, ideally, that's an MTech system, which is standardized throughout the group, and the reports are consistent, the format's agreed, what reports are needed by each of the levels of management in the business, standardized, and produced automatically by the system, sent out ahead of meetings, so everybody's got time to review the numbers against budget or whatever the parameter you're measuring against, and then contribute positively to the meeting. So they've had time to prepare. So that one system, that discipline on data collection into one system, calculation of standard reports, and then the automation of that to key managers, is how you get visibility and you get confidence and credibility in your data systems and information systems within a business.
Yeah, right. And what I saw in my implementations, that many companies growing fast and big and acquiring more and more divisions, and this is where all those differences are coming from, right? And the implementation of a software is a good chance to standardize all those practices and do the change management that will help to get everyone comparing apples to apples, like you said, to look at one version of the truth. And if you have all the data in one source, in one database, it's great. But sometimes for the tools like business analytics, you would need to get different sources. For example, you get the data from production system and you get the data from ERP system. But the key here is to have a tool and instruments to normalize and standardize that data. So all your KPIs and all your calculations are done based on the same formulas and stored in the same format. Even if you have a bigger operation that is dealing with pounds and kilos, with metric tons and other type of tons, it's always good to have one measure.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right, Nick. And your commentary there just sort of, it's so important when you're growing a business and you're acquiring other businesses. They all have their own systems, they all have their own culture, their own data culture, their own way of doing things. And you have to standardize that, because you've got to really create that internal competition. It's all got to be measurement on the same basis, apples against apples, creates competition. Everybody understands they're being measured in the same way, and you make it visible. And that generates considerable motivation in terms of continuous improvement and gaining efficiencies over time in any organization. And it's important if you have just one business. But as you acquire new companies, 2, 3, 4 different countries, nowadays there's global businesses, or there's businesses that operate right across Europe, for example. They need the certainty that the numbers they're reviewing and analysing are produced on the same basis across each of their divisions.
Yeah, talking about Europe, there are many companies that are operating in different languages. So it's really important to get the key reports on your KPIs, your weekly production, your monthly production, or your flock closing reports. Even if they're in the different languages, they still should be showing same numbers.
Correct. Absolutely spot on. And that's one of the challenges. But a common system, one system, will deliver you that across all of your business divisions and take away that doubt, that grey area about who produced these reports, who calculated these numbers, whose spreadsheet was it done on. There's not enough time in business today to be asking these questions. Get it into one system, create that discipline, standardize the reporting, and go for it.
All right, brilliant. I think it was a good discussion, and those are all the questions we had for today. So I think that we'll meet in the next podcast here, and we'll get Jim, or we'll get more people into discussion. And we encourage everyone to join us on the social media and follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn. Check out our website for news and articles. And I will see you on the next episode of this podcast.
Hey, Nick, thanks very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I'll see you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.